Welcome, guys. We've started our recording. I think I'm okay. Again, I'm just on that Mac here for the first couple months, so I'm just getting used to it. Thanks for your patience. Great having you guys here. Got a good group of diehards, the group that seems to make all the programs, and I appreciate you guys taking the time, especially with the NBA games going on, to join us. We're going to cover teaching the game tonight. I'm going to do at least 2 parts, if not 3 parts, of this because it is such an important part of being a coach at any level. And all of us are headed to the collegiate level. And certainly at that point, it's a major, major factor between winning and losing. And so I thought this was a great time after the season. You guys get a chance to unwind and get away from your own team to broach a subject of teaching the game. And I'm really going to challenge your thinking tonight. I got a chance to speak at a clinic in Minneapolis 2 weekends ago and did very much the same thing. Challenge thinking. There are a ton of offenses and defenses. You don't need me for that. You got plenty of help. You can find all that stuff on your own. I think you need somebody that's really going to try to expand your mind in terms of the way you think the game, in terms of being organized, and then philosophically where you're at. I think it's very, very important. And I've got a couple other announcements before we get going on our topic tonight, though. I want to share with you some good news we've got going on in the community. We have brand new members, Travis Pearson. Travis is the head girls coach at Lone Tree, Iowa. I may have introduced him before. Not sure Travis is here yet. And we just added a brand new coach today. I want to welcome Brett Gunderson. And Brett is the head women's basketball coach at Wichita Trinity Academy, and had a real interesting story and a quick conversation today that Greg Marshall's son goes to his Trinity Academy. And he worked the Wichita State camps, got to know Greg Marshall enough for Greg to make the call to the school that his son attends and help Brett get the job. And so he's kind of off and running in terms of building his network. And he's really excited to join the community. I told him a lot about you guys and the value that you guys bring to this community. And he will bring value to you guys also. And then thirdly, new member Brett Hersom. Brett is a former Iowa basketball coach up in Eagle Grove. And he is in Illinois, as you can see, Mahomet. And really eager to get going also. Very, very good young basketball coach who has a lot of experience and has a lot of success under his belt too, and I know did a great job here in Iowa as he was a coach. So we welcome those 3 members and know that I spoke with a couple of them who weren't sure they could make it, but they'll be getting the recording certainly. And we want to make sure that we recognize them and welcome them into the community. Tonight we're going to cover Part 1, teaching the game. Part 2 will be on Monday, June 3rd. And, you know, when we get into summer, guys, I understand timing gets tricky, just like it is in the season. Maybe there's not a time of the year where timing's not tricky, but put that on your calendar, Monday, June 3rd, same time, 8 o'clock Central. And I will dive into teaching the game, Part 2. Tonight's program will not have video associated with it. Part 2 definitely will, and if I get into a Part 3, which I almost am positive that I will, we will again share more video for you. Next thing I want to mention is summer camp, and you know, this is the time, being May, those camps are going to start in 3 to 4 weeks, some of them, and so I just want to encourage you to kind of tighten up your list of camps that you're going to work. Hopefully you've got your schedule by now. Understand some of them don't occur till June or July or August. And so you got a little bit more time. And, you know, my rule of thumb is always get involved in 3 to 4 times as many camps as you're going to have the time to work. One of the typical comebacks by coaches is, especially if you've never worked a camp, is, Coach, we're not going to be able to hire you. I'm sorry. Our enrollment's down a little bit, and so we're just going to hire the coaches that were with us last year. That's just common. I've had to make that call way too many times. And so be aware of that. And it's better to overbook than underbook. And especially if you've got 1 or 2 weeks. Those are precious weeks. Make sure those get filled with a live camp and not a dead camp. So anybody has any questions on that, you fire those questions in our chat here, or send them to me. But I would lean on each other in the chat room and get some assistance there. Lastly, I want to mention a clinic which I previously did in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In fact, Zach Pasha, Zach's on this tonight, and Travis were both, Travis Pearson, were both at the clinic. Met some great coaches. We had a lineup. I was just part of the presentation crew, and just really blessed and honored to be in the company of Dick Bennett from, as you guys know, from University of Wisconsin and Washington State. Jack Bennett, 2 national championships at Wisconsin Stevens Point. And then Larry McKenzie, who won 4 straight championships, high school championships in the state of Minnesota. And also we had Tim Gauze. Tim is at Northwestern in Minneapolis and did a great job with motion offense. And then Jim Boone gave a tremendous presentation on the pack. And a lot of you know Jim Boone from the Twitter, and he's got an excellent DVD out there too on the pack. So it was a tremendous weekend of sharing. I know Zach's got notes. I've got notes. Just really, really good. I mean, wisdom like you can't believe. I mean, these are guys. I mean, Dick Bennett alone, you could sit for a weekend and listen to. And so, again, blessed to be there. Met some great coaches, and we had a wonderful time. And I would highly recommend a year from now, because I'll be going back up there to the Hoops U clinic in Minneapolis. We will get you some resources from that. Before I move on, guys, let me do this. I've got Jack Bennett's presentation. It's a 4-page document I'd like to get you guys. Let me do that right now while we are talking about it. It's excellent. Get to it as quick as I can here. Get my Jack Bennett folder. And we will load that up. As I said, it's 4 pages, guys. Here's the second one. Third one and fourth one. You should have all 4 of them up in the box, and go ahead and download those from the box. I'll slide that over here to the right. And they'll give you a little perspective on Jack Bennett. He spoke on the 13 rocks of coaching. And the wisdom behind this is phenomenal. And Tony Afonso did a tremendous job organizing and running the clinic, and he actually taped the entire clinic and is going to turn that into a DVD. And that would be well worth your time to get the DVD from the clinic. Let's talk about new jobs in the community. There's nothing better than finding out about new jobs that our coaches have secured here in this community. This is what it's very, very much about in our community, guys. And just the thrill of hardworking young coaches that are getting an opportunity that they deserve because they've worked so hard. We'll start with Marcus Smith. Marcus is from Cincinnati, and he became a graduate assistant at Seton Hill. It's in PA. It's a Division II school. He is extremely excited. He in fact just lost his job, his regular job, and so he was really thrilled to be able to get this job. And he said to go ahead and pass on thanks to everybody in the community tonight, as I told him I would pass that on. Damon's with us, and Damon Perry is in Los Angeles, and he has been accepted into grad school up at the University of Washington in the Pac-10. Interesting enough, as you can imagine, through a relationship between the coach he works for and actually played for in Los Angeles and Coach Lorenzo Romar at Washington. And so that sort of opened it up for him, the opportunity to get in touch, and I'm really excited. He worked this really hard. He did a lot of great work, very strategically, did the right things, worked with the right people, and we're excited to see him at a big-time level as a graduate assistant, and he'll do great things as he continues with us in this community. Certainly he's not going away, but he'll be heading up there, I think, this summer to get acclimated and get going at University of Washington. So tremendous job by Coach Perry. Jared Neff, young man from the East Coast, the Upper East Coast, and he is down at University of Central Florida. He's in Orlando taking school. He also found good news out recently. He's going to be a student assistant there at UCF. He has worked extremely hard to get this position. He strategized like you cannot believe. I was just really proud of the way he went through this step by step to make this happen. And he actually was in the office a little bit last week, and then he'll be back in tomorrow, and they've got him going from school to school, passing out camp brochures, and as I have prepared him for, get ready to do anything A to Z. So he has made a tremendous move from just being a student to being involved in the program at University of Central Florida. Very solid, as you guys know, Division I program. Another development recently, Sam Winoski. Sam out at Colorado State as a director of ops. He will continue on in a similar type of role, assistant coach, director of ops at Furman University in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, Division I, obviously. And one of the full-time assistants at Colorado State, Nico Medved, became the head coach out at Furman and asked Sam to go along. Now, that's a good sign there. If one of the coaches on your staff asks you to follow him to his first coaching job, he thinks that much of Sam to offer him that opportunity to go out there. And so Sam now is out east in South Carolina at Furman University. So I'll be making adjustments in our contact list, guys, and so these guys that have changed jobs or got new jobs, when I get their contact information, I'll always immediately contact that list, or update that contact list. And then Taylor Harris, as you guys know, Taylor with Metro State is just gone from literally wanting to coach at any level to getting involved at Metro State. They finished second in the country this year. They played for the National Championship Division II and came up just short. And I don't have a fancy new title for him, but he looked at a couple situations. He's decided to stay because the coach he's working for is just so impressed with his work. They're giving him much more responsibility. We'll be doing more recruiting. We'll be doing much closer to a full-time assistant work than anything. And so I'm calling in the assistant jack of all trades at Metro State. Division II in Denver, Colorado. Taylor Harris went from a musician. He was in a band that toured the world for about 7 years. Got a phone call from Taylor. He said, I want to be a coach. I want to be a college basketball coach. And so we had to start from the beginning with Taylor. I'm really proud of him and wish he was on the program here tonight, but I wanted to mention that to you guys also. I have counted this afternoon close to, I think, 5 or 6 other members of this community that I believe are on the verge of their next job. It may not happen in May, may happen in June, July, August, even September possibly. But we've got a good handful of you guys that are getting real close to making that move. So if you're listening to this, I know you know that I'm speaking of you, and I'm strategizing with each of you to make this happen. And certainly remember that things that don't happen now are going to happen down the road, and everything you do is an investment in your career. Lastly, before we get started, I want you to know that Stephen Gentry from Texas A&M, the Director of Ops, sent me a text message tonight indicating to me that he is going to Stephen F. Austin, an outstanding program in Texas, as the new assistant. And so he made a jump to Texas A&M as Director of Ops, and now he's making a jump from Director of Ops to assistant coach. And 2 things. Number one, congratulations to him. He's a good friend of our community, and I think an excellent young coach. He was a recent guest of ours on the program back during the season, I guess. And the other reason I mentioned that is he's a great resource for you that want to become Director of Ops at a program, because he became a Director of Ops. He also went from the Director of Ops position now to a full-time head coach. And so depending where you're at with your career, if you're in one of those spots, what a great guy to call and get to know much better, and get advice and information from him on how he did that. And he would be glad to share. He's an awesome guy, and it would be a great resource for you guys. So really excited to share that. If I missed one, which I could have, make sure that somebody sends me a message, because I certainly want to acknowledge and celebrate each of these victories by you guys. This is what it's all about. Okay. Let me take a drink here. Here's what we're going to cover tonight about teaching the game. Learn by playing, experience, and observation. Number 2, forming and writing a philosophy of the game. 3, documenting everything you see, hear, and do. 4, be yourself. 5, teachers, not coaches. 6, get experience on any level. 7, begin to develop your top 3. 8, your notebook. It represents who you are as a coach. Number 9, outline of skills needed at your level. Whatever level you coach at, what skill set have you put together? Because that's really your foundation. Number 10, what, why, how. And the final 5 for tonight, I have 15 nuggets to share with you, is 11. Put skill into drill, drill into 3-on-3, into 5-on-5, and then put it into the game on Friday night. Number 12. You must know why and what you are teaching. It's a clinic syndrome. It's going to a clinic, picking up some neat stuff and saying, I think we'll do that next year. You need to know why and what. You need to know what you're teaching. You and your players must know, especially know why. 13, be flexible and willing to make changes. Be challenged by others. Be willing to be challenged by others. And I wish I was there over your shoulder, every one of you guys, during the season, during the off season, as you're teaching players. But obviously I can't be. You need to find someone who can challenge you. The best thing you could do, and probably the last thing you want to do, because we all naturally are resistant to people correcting us or giving us the kind of advice we don't want to hear. It's really important. Number 14, evaluate yourself, your staff, and your players. 15, always be learning. John Wooden quote, when you're done learning, you're done. And he would know something about learning. Now we're going to go into just a little bit more detail on each of these. We're going to go to number 1 here. Get a little bit bigger so you can see that. When we start coaching, where does the knowledge of the game, any ideas on how the game should be played, where do those things come from? They come from your playing experience. They come from just general basketball experiences. And they come from observation. They can come from clinics and such. But that's how you fundamentally, each of us, learn about the game of basketball. What it's about, we first learn to play. And through playing, we have an understanding of how the game works. If we decide to coach, we have that background. Now, it may not be a good background. You may have had a great high school coach. You may have had a horrible high school coach. And unfortunately, I hear a lot of young high school coaches say, when I ask them what kind of program they're going to put together and what kind of system are they thinking about implementing, they say, well, we'll probably just do what my high school coach did. In a lot of cases, and it's funny, one guy said, and I hated my high school coach. Well, that's good. Okay, so just repeat what he did then. Okay, that's ludicrous. But those that are new, they're wet behind the ears, they don't want to learn, and they're not open to developing their own way to coach, tend to default to, well, it's all I know when I played. All right, so all of us come, all right, and mature through those experiences, observation, and playing. To get a little further down the road, it gets down to a philosophy. Listen, if you haven't formed and written your philosophy of teaching this game, it is absolutely, I think, the most important thing you can do. You hear me talk a lot about the top three. Those are the three things that you absolutely they're absolutely non-negotiables. Okay, if you're going to win, you're going to do these three things and do the best you can with everything else. Okay, and what three things would those be? Well, that's part of writing a philosophy. So if you have not, here's my advice. It sounds like a big project, probably pretty overwhelming. Guys, what I would do is I would write a brief outline based on some of these questions that I've indicated here and some others that you may think of. You may read other philosophies of, I call it philosophies of teaching the game. You'll hear a lot of others call it philosophy of coaching. I'm going to talk about what I think the difference is, but that's semantics. Write an outline. Divide that outline up into pieces, and then I would sit down and just write from the heart. And don't worry about punctuation, spelling. Don't worry about anything. Just write. Okay, in all of those areas. Go back, proofread it, refine it. I'm telling you, you need to stick that thing in your pocket. And if anybody says, hey, what are you all about as a teacher of the game of basketball? At least you can go to something and say, this is what I'm all about. Now, doesn't it sound crazy that there are coaches coaching this game that can't actually say that? Say, you know what? Here's what I stand for. Boom, right here. I've written it down. It's the most important thing you could write down as far as being a coach. It is your guide. If you're climbing a mountain, you hire a guide and you go with them. It is your guide. It's the way that you are going to teach this game. So, again, that's one of my many challenges tonight. If you have not physically written it down, typed it, whatever, do it now. Here's some ideas. Why do I coach? Boy, I think that's just a great, great question. You have to know the reason for that, right? And we all have different reasons. Why do I coach? What values do I want to instill? If this is truly, guys, more than winning and losing games, then there are values and life lessons that you are trying to instill in the young people that you coach. What are those values? And to take that a step further, if those, in fact, are the values you're trying to instill, do you yourself emulate and role model those values? It's a very important question for you to answer before you even start determining what values you want to teach to the young people. What's your philosophy of winning? You can say, well, I want to win every game. Yeah, great. What are the lessons in winning? What are the lessons in losing? Winning, to me, is a byproduct of doing things right, being organized, being able to motivate people, and getting the absolute most out of everything you have. To me, you win as a byproduct of that. So you need to write about your philosophy of winning. What is winning? Because winning to Rick Pitino might not be the same as winning to the coach at Mesa State. You need to know what winning means to you. Next is your top three. In any philosophy of teaching this game, you must have your top three. I'll get to that in a little bit. Offensive and defensive philosophy. Certainly, if I ask you offensively what your philosophy is, more than just, well, we want to get it up and down and score a lot of points. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. I could pull a guy off the street and he could tell me that. In more specifics, what is your offensive philosophy? What's your defensive philosophy? These are anchors for you. Next would be, what is your commitment to fundamentals and skills, to building players through fundamentals and skills, building teams through fundamentals and skills? What is your commitment to it? I think a really sad thing in our game is the amount of coaches who preach fundamentals but are not committed to them. And all I've got to do is go to their practice and see these drills and guys flying all over the place with total lack of any fundamental awareness whatsoever. I can also go to a different kind of practice where the whole practice is about the pieces of the game and then they're slowly put together. So don't say you're into the fundamentals of the game, guys, unless I could walk into your practice and see it in action. And I'm really serious about that. And then another idea is the typo there. The intended results of your coaching through the eyes of your players. In other words, what do you want your players to take away from the experience of you being their coach? Boy, is that a powerful question and an even more powerful answer. And if you want to humble yourself, ask that to your seniors. Sit them down once the season's over. They're getting ready to leave high school. They're done playing for you. And ask them, what were the results of playing for me through your eyes? I want to know. Tell me the good and the bad. And how can I improve? Now, you're going to hear some things that will bring a tear to your eye, and you'll also hear some things that will help you get better. But boy, what a neat question to ask. Now, there are other things. If you guys have ideas, you can type them in. This is not by any means a cut and dry outline for your philosophy, but I think it's a good start for you guys. Not a ton of X's and O's, as you can see. Number 3, you must write everything down. Everything. I swear, most of the coaches I've ever run into that didn't have a pen in their pocket either have a photographic memory or they have absolutely no discipline or interest in becoming a better coach. I have no idea why you wouldn't always have a pen and some paper with you. How many times have you been somewhere and you get ready to write something down and you got to ask the guy, hey, do you have a pen? Or you got to ask the waitress, hey, do you have a pen? Can I borrow your pen? It just seems like a crazy thing and maybe a small thing, but it's not. It's important. Can't tell you how many head coaches or maybe assistants when I was working my way up that didn't have a pen. Man, you fire that thing out of your pocket in about 2 seconds. I think it's a good sign. I really do. Have paper with you. Have a pen. And one of my pet sayings of all time is a good assistant always has a pen. A good assistant always has a pen. I've gone to college practices before at Iowa State. I know all the managers over there, and I'll walk in, and those suckers will see me walk through the door, and you can tell it's either panic in their face or they reach in and get a pen and hold it up and show me with pride. It's hilarious. And I'm trying to train these guys, and it's really, really important. I don't know about you guys, but when I drive or when I walk or when I'm by myself, I can think of some great stuff. It might not have anything to do with basketball, winning a basketball game. It could be something about music. It could be something you're going to remember to tell your parents or your wife, or something you got to remind yourself to tell one of your kids. It could be anything. But you need to be ready to write things down. Read about successful people in all walks of life, and they are diligent writers and note takers. Ideas, thoughts, tactics, comments, observations, information of any kind. And use those in your philosophy. A lot of those things are going to blend right into your philosophy. I don't know how many of you guys use a digital tape recorder, but I've got one, and it's always with me in my car because I do my best thinking in the car. And I'm always coming up with things that I've got to remember. And that's neat too, because if you're driving, instead of trying to write, just pull out your recorder and just talk. It's amazing what you can get out of yourself. Number 4, be yourself. You'll hear everybody at every clinic say you got to be yourself. Don't try to be this guy or that guy. Don't try to impersonate someone. Now, how do you be yourself if you really don't even know who you are in the first place, especially as a teacher of the game? You don't really know who you are. Well, my recommendation would be this. Find coaches you respect. Study their personality, their style, and their philosophy. And pull out pieces from each of those that you think fit you. Study unsuccessful coaches, coaches you don't respect, coaches that are not liked particularly by the coaching community because of the way they treat people or coach their kids. And learn from those guys too. And if you start taking snippets of different coaches at different levels, it doesn't matter. Just study body language, personality, style, philosophy. Study if a guy takes over programs and immediately wins. How does that happen? How do guys do that? And research. This is your profession. Research. By all means, find out why people are successful. And I think that's the best way to begin to design you as a teacher. Study the good ones. Number 5, I do not like the word, and I use it a lot. I think we all do, just out of habit, the word coach. If you can imagine any movie you've seen or any sitcom or any just general reference to coach, it's a guy with a hat on, kind of half cocked up in the air, and he's got a gray t-shirt on and it says PE, and he's got a whistle around his neck. And to me, when I hear coach, that's sort of what I think. You are a teacher of the game. You're a teacher of life. You're a teacher of adversity. You're a teacher of winning. You're a teacher of losing. You're a teacher of motivating. You're a teacher of putting people in difficult situations to help them realize something about themselves that they had no idea that they could do. That's what you are. You're a teacher. Those of you that are school teachers, you're a teacher. This thing about coach, and I don't mean to bag on ex-players, but I've been in way too many basketball camps and had ex-college players waltz into the gym, half of them without their shoestrings tied, half of them late, walk in and just think that they're going to grab a group and teach them defensive stance and shuffling within a shell drill. And it is unbelievable what I assumed as a young coach. I thought these guys would just have it. And again, I'm being rough on a certain segment, but it's just been my experience. And those guys are not teachers at all. They know the game and they've played the game. But that doesn't mean they can teach the game. If you've been a great high school player or an average high school player, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can teach the game. There is an art to teaching. If you want to learn how to be a teacher, go sit in the classroom of an award-winning teacher. If you want to learn what teaching's all about, go into a gymnasium during the day and watch a PE teacher, an elementary or junior high PE teacher with 35 kids. And a good one now. Go see a good one, and you will find out quickly what teaching is all about. And it's about having command of that group. It's the words that you use. It's the organization that you have. It's the way you talk to people. It's how organized you were. And if I had a choice, I got to the point where if I had a choice for camp to hire an ex-player that I felt from talking to on the phone, kind of felt like he could handle this, no big deal, or a PE teacher. I've brought in PE teachers who had never coached basketball. I loved them. They were some of my best camp coaches ever in 30 years of doing it. Why? They could take 16 kids and get them all active and moving at the same time. Now I look down at another basket and we've got one kid shooting and 15 kids waiting in line. That's teaching. And I just threw a couple of definitions in there. You guys know this. Some of the words that are involved in these definitions: impart knowledge, skill, give instruction. A synonym is coach. To impart knowledge or a skill, give instruction, inform, enlighten, discipline, drill, school, indoctrinate. Your teachers. A coach can be a guy who walks in, he's so full of himself, he can't see straight, and it's all about him. And the higher he can raise his tone of voice and the more intimidating he can be to those kids, the more of a coach he is, the more of a man he is. It's not about that. It's about teaching. And ultimately, it is, and this would be a great part of your philosophy, because my philosophy, when I wrote it, and I've revised it and revised it and revised it, but one thing that became apparent to me through the years was that it wasn't about making all your players all conference players. It was about helping each of those kids reach their ceiling. If you can do that individually and then collectively can get that team to play together with some ownership, you got it made. It is absolutely the coolest profession on earth. It's not even close. But if you don't do that, it can be a real disaster and it can be miserable for you. All right, number 6, experience at any level. I get quite a few questions each week from young coaches and say, I have a chance to be an AAU coach for a 10-year-old team. What should I do? Should I take it or should I wait to become a high school assistant? I say take it and run. Listen, if you can take a 4th grade team and coach those guys just through a season, coach those guys through a 4th grade season, you will learn so much about teaching the game. Not about dunking it, not about fancy offenses, not about this and that, all this crap that's on ESPN. You're going to find out how to communicate, how to motivate, how to organize, how to be very clear and specific with your teaching. Because learn by doing is the best way by far to learn how to do something. And sometimes the younger levels, like I said, are the best. Explain, be simplistic, motivate, and use terminology. Never, never turn down an opportunity to coach, regardless of level or situation. And I say this, if you don't know anything about soccer, learn a little bit about soccer and go coach soccer to kids. Be intimidating for me. And I don't know anything about it. It bores me to death. But I'll bet I could become a better coach, a better teacher of soccer and of basketball if I studied the game and learned how to teach those kids the game of soccer. 7, begin to develop your top 3. Your top 3 are the 3 parts of the game you think lead most to winning. I'm going to give you 1 minute right now. And if you want to put your top 3 in the box, that's fine. But I'm going to give you 1 minute to write down your top 3. If you've never done this, it's a good time to start. If you have and you've got it down, At least for right now, you got it down? Great. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Good exercise. In 1 minute, Zach added attack, man-to-man defense, and motion offense. Those are his 3. There's a program I'm going to develop that will be at least an hour program just on the top 3. I could go forever. I want to go find a document to send you guys here. But as I'm doing that, go ahead. Ryan has indicated his 3. Ito's indicated his 3. Go ahead and take a look at those. I'm going to go find you a document that I used. I've given several clinic presentations simply on the top 3. I want to pull those out and load them up for you guys. There's your top 3 notes. We're all about defense here. I love it too. Okay, great. I appreciate you guys adding your top 3 down there in the box. That's awesome. Listen, if you've never done this, then you did something tonight that is going to absolutely make you a tremendous coach. And it doesn't matter what you wrote down. What matters is you did write it down, because the next thing we're going to talk about is your notebook. And whatever you wrote down tonight will go into that notebook. This is bread and butter foundation, guys, without a question. You know, and I call it, one of the names I have for it is the yellow bus. It's the yellow bus syndrome. It's you high school coaches, and I always think, because I grew up in the Midwest, when I think of a yellow school bus in the winter, I think of it being really cold, frost on the windows. And the yellow bus syndrome is all about being a coach, having a top 3. And when you get in that yellow bus after the game on the road, can you sit and tell yourself, in all honesty, I feel good about my top 3. We did rebound, okay? We did get back in defensive transition, and we did limit our fouls, for instance, if those were my top 3. Now, if that's the case, guys, those are your top 3, and you've researched the game, you know those are your top 3, you know how to teach them, then you got to feel good in the yellow bus. Now, there's nothing worse is to get in the yellow bus and know that your non-negotiables, all right, were not accomplished. That's a terrible, terrible feeling. But this all starts with you, first of all, determining what your top 3 are. It is an everyday emphasis, guys, players and coaches. It's unending. It's the emphasis in June. It's the emphasis in January. It's the emphasis at team camp in the summer. It's the emphasis when you're watching video with your players. It's your emphasis as you're watching NBA games, taking notes. One of the litmus tests of a really good coach is, think of a really good, let's say, NBA or high school or college coach. And you should, if I name a name, you should be able to write down their top 3 or get very, very close to them. And I can just list some names. I know you guys could get very close. Yeah, you should just do it to yourself in your head. You should just throw a couple names out. When we get done tonight, write them down. 1, 2, 3. Write them down. 1, 2, 3. All right. Number 8. I'm assuming that all of you have your philosophy notebook. Even though you don't necessarily have your philosophy written, you've put together, assembled, and begun your notebook, your philosophy notebook. Why do we need this? Because it is a physical representation of who you are as a teacher of this game. And again, photographic memory, hey, great. That's awesome. If you got one, use it. Nobody on this call has one, I'll promise you that, especially the guy you're looking at. That's why I got pens, 7,000 pens all over the place. Got to write stuff down. I can't remember 10 seconds ago. Your notebook represents who you are as a coach. Okay, best thing you can do is to establish yourself as a coach by keeping the things that you most covet about the game, the information. Use your outline, our outline, to get your book started. Okay, we've done this several times, but until I get absolutely 100% of our guys involved in this, I am going to continue to hammer on this. I'm going to send you the outline for your notebooks. So bear with me a second. There they are. And I'm going to load up right there. There's your outline. Download that. And again, I would think each of you on the call already has this going. Very important, guys. It's your coaching Bible. It represents you. And only include in there, this is not a junk pile for every clinic note, practice plan, winning hoops, mail out. That's not what this is. This is a place to include the things, the definite things that you most believe in and can teach. Don't put something in this notebook you cannot teach. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Only what you can teach and only what you truly believe in. Why? Because it's part of you. Be selective and keep it simple. How many out-of-bounds plays, coach, should be in my baseline out-of-bounds section in my coaching philosophy notebook? Well, how many do you need? Now, there's 9 billion of them. I wouldn't put all of those in there because you're not going to teach 9 billion to guys who can't remember if they got study hall second or third period. I'd say 5 at the most on the baseline. I'd say 3 or 4 on the sideline, and then, of course, you're going to have your late game stuff. That's it. You see one tonight, and you think that's absolutely a great play. Here's why it's a great play, because it has 3 options. Can I teach it? Yes. Is it better than what we do now? Yes. It goes in your book. It's your deal. It's your Bible. It's your deal. All right, enough on that. 9. Do you have an outline of skills for your program? And I don't care if it's a college program. I really don't care if it's an MBA program. The high school or junior high program, do you have a definite written out skill set? You high school head coaches, if you're actually building a program down in the 4th and 5th grades, you've established a skill set of what skills you want those kids to be able to learn and master at that level. In 7th grade, what's your skill set? In 8th grade, your skill set. As freshmen, what do you want them to be able to do? Because, listen, if you haven't done a good job with them, or your lower coaches haven't done a good job with them, you're going to get a bad product. That's your fault. It's one thing to say, well, we had a couple bad classes in a row. You know what? I guarantee you those bad classes in a row didn't start in 4th and 5th grade. With stance, balance, vision, footwork, there's no way. It doesn't work like that. Outline the skills. Do you have a skill set for your college program? What is it? What's the terminology that you use in your skill set? Is it eyes up or chin up? I actually have one I use. I just love it. And I call it, what color is the rim? You get a kid that's got his head down, has no idea where he's at on the floor, cutting all over the place. He catches it, starts to dribble. He's got his head down, looking over. Hey, what color is the rim? They stop. They look up at the rim. He says orange. I say, you should have known that anyway. So what are you going to use? Head up, chin up, eyes up? I don't know. It's up to you. But figure it out and be consistent and use them. Now, last thing in number 9, like I said, if you're a high school coach, it is your responsibility to get buy-in from your youth coaches and teach them how to teach. If you assume that the local insurance guy who's going to be your 6th grade coach, and he's going to prepare 15 6th graders for you as they work their way up in your program, if you assume he knows what this skill set is, you are sadly mistaken. Just as much as you could probably talk on term insurance for an hour at a State Farm convention. Can't do it. Can't happen. So teach your coaches to teach and turn them into teachers. Really, really important for being able to teach this game. Okay, next page. I'm moving along quickly. This is a lot of stuff, guys, but this is foundational stuff for you guys. This is really, really important. Number 10, what, why, how. This is real simple, but it's really, really difficult to do. And if you can do it with precision, you will become a master at teaching this game. What are you teaching? First of all, you have to know what you're teaching. If I'm at a high school practice and they're in a 2-3, and I ask the coach after, what are you doing with that zone, coach? Well, it's kind of a 3-2, and it becomes an amoeba, and we get stretched out. It's kind of a this and that, and we fake them. But you know what? You don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know what you're teaching. First thing you have to know, and I love Hubie Brown. He says don't ever get involved with something you don't know how to teach. So know what it is you're teaching. Know why you're teaching it. Let's talk about playing away from the ball. Why you teach them playing away from the ball? Isn't it amazing? You go into almost any gym in America where kids are in there working out, everybody's got a basketball. Have you ever thought about this? Over 90% of the time on offense, you don't have the ball. And over 90% of the time on defense, the player you're guarding does not have the ball. 90% of the game is played without and away from the ball. I don't think we do a good job of teaching that. I think we come up with 900,000 dribble drills with all these funky names, and as much as I love Gannon Baker and some of these guys, man, they wear me out with 700 ankle-breaking drills. Got to be kidding me. How about teach kids how to look, get their chin up, and get in a stance and be on balance, and learn how to talk to each other on the floor? All you need is a crossover, right? I mean, that's about it in terms of dribbling. So why are you teaching it? There has to be a why. You have to know. Balance and stance is rebounding. Kids have to know that we're teaching balance and stance so that kid can rebound, because if he rebounds, he plays. But if you tell a kid, hey, you need to be better at balance in your stance, they want to go to the pool if it's a nice day, go swimming. They could care less. Your job is to understand why you're teaching it. Your job is to make sure that the coaches that coach with you and for you at all levels and your players know why you are teaching that particular skill. Footwork's a great one. Kids don't think footwork's important. They have no idea what footwork is. When you become an expert at footwork, think about this. What is your expertise in footwork? How would you rate yourself 1 to 10? Could we all meet in a gym in 5 minutes and have you go through footwork from the perimeter and take us through a 45-minute teaching session on footwork from the perimeter? I mean, how good are you with footwork? All right. Well, you know what you're teaching, footwork. Why? Obviously, footwork is the game. If you don't have feet, you can't play this game. And then third, how are you teaching it? So you may want to coach or teach footwork. What? Why? You know why, but you have no idea how to teach it. Okay. Well, there's a kind of a missing wheel there in the machine. You need to go out and learn how to teach footwork. And these days, with all of the resources you have, oh my gosh, all the great people to learn from. There are a lot of really, really good teachers of footwork. Go study those guys, research, ask questions, go visit practice, ask coaches about footwork. Number 3, how are you teaching it? So when you become a student of footwork, you learn how to teach it, because you need to be an expert in this area. If rebounding is one of your top 3, and you seriously could not put on a 90-minute clinic on rebounding, then you need to go back and check yourself. And I'd say you're not an expert in it. If that's one of your top 3, I mean, it's got to be like you know your name and SOCH number. That's how big time an expert you need to be in that area. Okay, what, why, and how. And I want you all thinking about this as we're going through this. I want you challenging yourself. Where am I in terms of what, why, and how? Number 11. If you can get players to understand this, that you're going to teach them a skill, you're going to put the skill into a drill. You're going to put the drill into a 3-on-3 situation. You're going to turn it into a 5-on-5 situation. And on Friday night, people are going to actually pay money to come and watch your team play to see if they can execute the skill that you taught them on Monday night and get it into the game. Now, I think we all understand if we just think stuff's going to happen through magic, it'll never happen. Now, what is the word we use when we teach the skill and put it into the drill and it doesn't get done more than about 60% of the time? And what happens when we drill and we put the drill into 3-on-3, half court or full court, and we hardly even see the skill? That's called slippage. We all run into it. I think we all can learn something if it's the one thing we're given to learn. And you go into a drill and you repeat it and you see it and you see it and you repeat it. Let's say a great example is screening and cutting. If you're a motion coach, you're going to break down motion into screening and cutting. So you teach the skill of screening. What is screening? What angle do you take to go down? Well, you got to get your butt to the ball. How fast do you run down there? Is there a verbal or a visual signal? How wide do you get? Where are your hands supposed to be? What do you do after you make contact? Oh, make contact. What do you do after you make contact? See all this? I mean, that all gets into putting just putting the knowledge into a player to teach them the skill of screening. So now you're going to do a screening drill. Real easy. They know what they're going to do, and they'll screw it up about half the time. And the hard thing about motion is it takes two to tango. So your cutter must be in sync with your screener. That's why most screens are awful screens. It's because of the cutter, not the screener. But then you're going to take the screening in that drill and put it into 3-on-3, and we all know what's going to happen then. It's going to absolutely disintegrate and disappear. Gone. Let alone full court 3-on-3. Let alone 5-on-5. Let alone Friday night. Now, this is a challenge, but this should be the progression. I don't know if you've ever thought about it in this manner, but if you just think you're going to run some rebounding drills without teaching first, you're never going to see it materialize. You don't just throw drills out. I call them activity drills. Okay, guys, we're going to have a couple shooting drills and a couple rebounding drills, and then we're going to scrimmage. Great. Okay? I want to schedule you 30 times a year because I'll kick your ass every time I play you. Because your team's going to be horrible. Now, what I would rather that you do is teach the skill, put it into the drill, and spend time on it. And until they get it and they know what it's all about, okay, and they can do a good job in that drill, and then go into 3-on-3. Boy, there's such a difference between good coaches and mediocre coaches. This is what good coaches do. And they get their kids to learn why they're doing it that way, and they get them to buy in. And it's a beautiful thing when that happens. All right. Number 12. We talked about why and what earlier, right? But this is a little bit different distinction. Know why and what you are teaching. You and your players must know why. I think why is the most important thing. Because if you brought kids in and said, we're going to have this summer, instead of team camp, we're going to host a fundamental camp, and they're all going to roll their eyes. But if you tell them you're going to have a camp, okay, that's going to be comprised of components, and if they can learn those components, they will each earn more playing time for next season. They're coming to that camp. Well, we're tricking them is what we're doing, and they don't even know it. Right? 3-on-3 is a great way to trick kids. They think they're playing, but actually you teach out of 3-on-3, you're teaching the game, man. It's a great, great way to learn. And if the players can understand why you're asking them to do this, why is this part of a drill, why this skill is important, you got it made. They buy in, and that's what you want. That's what you want. Remember, it doesn't matter what you know. What matters is what your players know and what they can execute on game night. Plain and simple. I don't care how many clinics you go to. It doesn't matter. When I go see your team play, I'm going to be able to see whether you were able to translate what you knew about the game and about the way you wanted them to play to them so I can see it on the floor. That is true teaching. And there is no such thing as it just happening on game night. Man, I tell you, I've seen it so many times. The stuff that comes out during the week comes out in the game. The good things, the sound things, the toughness that happens every day in practice, Monday through Friday, comes out on Saturday night. It does. But it's not just going to happen in a vacuum because it's, okay, guys, it's game time. We've worked really hard in practice. Now it's really time to execute. Well, if you haven't executed all week, really executed, you ain't going to execute. Okay? And you're going to get a bad feeling in your stomach when you get on that yellow bus. Nobody wants that. Number 13, with your philosophy, with your style of teaching, guys, be flexible and willing to make changes. And be willing to be challenged by others. Okay, your philosophy is ever evolving. There's no such thing as, right, your coaching philosophy, your philosophy of teaching the game, and 30 years from now, it should be exactly the same. No, that's crazy. We change just like everything else in this world. So don't be afraid. Don't be too proud to make changes. Here's a great example. All right. I'm a man-to-man coach. We're going to get up. We're going to guard you man-to-man. We're going to help. We run the pack. We don't foul. All this. Okay. You know what? You might think about playing zone because your team's not good enough right now to play man-to-man. You're getting broken down too much. You can't guard the ball. The opponent's shooting 25 free throws a game. And you're saying, hey, I'm never playing zone. That's a four-letter word. You got to be flexible in this game, guys. You got to be willing to make changes. You know, you may hate switching defensively, and you may watch a game and just this team just unbelievable at switching in the half court. Study it. Don't discount it. Think, you know what? That might be a great way to go. Maybe not as a wholesale change, everything switching, but maybe last possession of a quarter, last possession of a half, out of a timeout. Get good at it. Learn it, get good at it. Trial and error some things. A lot of coaches I know try different things in the summer when they go to team camp, because that's not about winning or losing games. And they try a lot in their own camps. Great way to trial. Trial and error. An example I can share with you is I know a couple of high school coaches who had always taught players to catch it and then try to score with their back to the basket. And we had a conversation, and I told them to chart it, go back and chart efficiency. It was less than 25%. Their players were able to score with their back to the basket. Now, we're talking 6 feet from the basket, but trying to score back to the basket, 25%. So I said, this summer, here's what I'd like you to do. Teach your kids how to catch it, inside pivot, rip and face the basket. You may end up being 7 or 8 feet instead of 6 feet from the hole, outside the lane, maybe a little bit outside the lane. I said, but take a look at it. I said, I think it's so much harder to guard a player 8 feet from the basket, nose to nose, than it is 6 feet from the basket with the offensive players back to you. How many high school players or even college players are good back to the basket scorers anyway? NBA, they're not. It's a face-up game, right? So why are we still maybe in the dark ages a little bit with teaching kids how to, a drop step's a drop step. But this, all the up and unders and all the, jump hooks, and I don't know. And I'm just throwing that out. So an example is trial and error things in the summer. Me, personally, I just like the idea of catching, ripping, and facing, and then getting an angle to the basket. I think it's awesome. It's not going to happen every time. It's not appropriate every single time, but for the most part, I would teach kids to catch and face. All right? 14. If you're not evaluating yourself, you're missing the boat. You're either too dumb, too lazy, or too arrogant because you don't want to hear the things that are going to help you become a better coach and help your team become a better program and win more games. Because I know we evaluate our staff. I know we evaluate our players. But who evaluates us? Who truly evaluates us? I'm not talking about the principal bringing you in and evaluating, or the AD coming in and evaluating. I'm not talking about that. Now, there might be some valuable things in there, but that's not what I'm talking about. Somebody that will, with brass tacks, come at you and challenge you on a number of different areas. Hey, I'd love to do it. I'd love to evaluate each of you after the season. You need somebody who will not blow smoke, no BS, and just ask you the hard questions. That's how you get better. If you're too shielded, okay, and you want to stay away from that, well, then get used to the results that you've always had. You talk to humble, respected guys like Dick and Jack Bennett, and I am telling you, they would welcome your evaluation. See, it's the opposite of what you'd think. You'd think these big-time coaches, highly successful coaches, just turn off the switch and won't listen to anybody. That's why they're good, guys. They study the game. They talk to other coaches. They say, what do you think about this? Okay? Really good coaches want others to come to practice. And then they ask them after practice, what did you think about our man-to-man in transition? Really, what did you think? Why do you think they ask those questions? They don't want to get patted on the back. I mean, if it was awesome, tell them it's awesome. But if you saw a thing or two, share it. That's why they asked. That's why those guys are so stinking good every year. And that's why ego can't be a part of teaching this game at any level. So how are you evaluated? 15, always be learning. John Wooden. When you're done learning, you're done. One of my neat stories, because I'm a Pistol Pete Maravich fanatic, I had the unbelievable opportunity to meet the Pistol in Kansas City, Missouri when I was 15 years old, and went up with some other high school kids up the elevator to his room the afternoon before a game, and he was my idol, still is. Just an incredible story, and loved him as a player, and don't think we'll ever see him again in this game. But I remember hearing a story about his father, who I've read a lot about, certainly. And the big camp in those days was at Campbell College, a famous camp. All the big-time coaches, would go to Campbell College in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, and check into the dorms and coach these kids in camp. Now, this is way, way before anything close to what we know about camp and things today. And obviously college coaching has changed a lot. But these guys had roommates. Press Maravich writes in one of the books about how his roommate every summer was John Wooden. And one of the two asked 75 to 80% of the questions all the time, all night, all day, lunch, breakfast, dinner. And it was Wooden. He asked Press Maravich question after question after question. Now, if you really think about that, how does that hit you? None of us ever have it figured out. We have never arrived. Ego cannot be a part of this profession. Your drive has got to be high. You've got to be open. You got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to be defeated. You have to be able to handle adversity. And if John Wooden had a mentor, and I guess he had many mentors, and that's why they say John Wooden was humble. They use the word humble all the time with him. And think about that. I mean, that just rivets me when I really, really think about it. And I'm reading in these books, and I love to read about the old coaches. I think they're awesome. And what a neat story. So that's number 15. Always be learning. When you're done learning, you're done. Guys, those are 15 elements, and we're already a minute or an hour and 19 minutes. That's amazing. You guys are great. Those are 15 nuggets. And that's why this can only be part one of a 3-part series, because I laid the foundation with you tonight. I hope I stimulated your thinking. I hope you have written down some things that you're going to ask yourself. Have you written your philosophy? Do you have your philosophy notebook? Are you researching the game? Do you always have a pen? Do you know what you're teaching, why you're teaching it, and do you know how to teach it? So I think there's probably some great stuff y'all got. I mean, I just love talking about this because I believe in it so much. And I'll be able to share with you guys the video, my own personal video from the Coach U Clinic, because I'll be getting my own video for my presentation, which I'll make available to all you guys. It'll be on my website. But everything 2 weekends ago was just from the ground level, man. It was foundational stuff. It wasn't fancy. Yeah, we got to see the pack and we got to see some motion, but it was the stuff that will make you a great teacher of the game. I wholeheartedly believe that. And this is just me, guys. This is just based on my background, these 15 things, just in a part 1 series. But these things I know because I've learned them, I've researched them, I've done them, I've failed, I've succeeded. But deep down, I know, because I had the opportunity, was so fortunate to work with great people that knew what they were doing, that were successful, that this is how I think the game needs to be approached. So your top 3, your philosophy, you got some work to do because those are foundational, guys. And the other thing about that is, if you have a philosophy that you would like me to take a look at and read and give you some comments on, I would love to do that. That would be great. It'd make me feel really good if I knew you guys had taken the time to do that and were willing to share it or send it to each other. You know, do a peer review thing with somebody else, you know, on our call or in the community. That's all I have. We've got a couple guys with phone appointments in the morning. Talked about some new members and some things going on earlier, and I think that's it. We will reconvene in 2 weeks. It'll be a guest program. I'll be announcing our guest in a couple weeks and to let you know. And so 2 weeks from tonight at 8 o'clock Central, we will be sharing a guest with you. And one last thing, Ito would like to know if I could share the PowerPoint. And I absolutely can. Let me go find that for you, tonight's PowerPoint. I think it's on the desktop. Let me go find that. There it is. All right, you guys feel free to hang on if you'd like. Wait till that loads up so that you can download it. I'll get the recording of this up and appreciate your time tonight. Hopefully it was really good for you. I think we covered some good stuff. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to become better teachers of the game tonight. All right, awesome. I'll wrap this recording up, but I'm going to keep the program open for you guys that want to kind of talk and hang out here in the meeting, okay? Sounds great. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.